Yo, what's good? Big Z here, and welcome to my mixing masterclass. I'm going to be mixing a track from scratch and splitting it between a few different parts and a few different videos just so we can focus on one thing at a time. First of all, congrats to the winner of this week's mix and master contest. All you have to do is comment below, and in a few days I'll pick the winner for next week. So for part one of this mixing masterclass, we really have to start at the beginning. So you've written a track, you've produced it, and honestly, you've probably done some mixing while you're producing it with certain levels, just so it doesn't sound really bad while you're producing it. But now you need to make a final mix. But the thing is, after producing a track, you probably have a really big, complicated project that looks kind of like this. I mean, this is only 60 layers, 60 tracks. It could end up having over 100 tracks if it's a more complicated song. If you try to do the final mix within the project that you produced the track in, you're not going to get great results. There's just too much going on. It's hard to focus on things that are important for the mix to sound good. So the solution to this is bounce your track out into stems. I don't mean bounce every single individual track, but you should layer similar sounds together into the same stem. First of all, the track I'm going to be mixing is my own track called Lonely. Here's a little preview of what it sounds like.
No, I'm not lonely, lonely. I don't feel so lonely, lonely. Wish I could show the old me. No, I'm not lonely, lonely. I don't feel so lonely, lonely. Wish I could show the old me. Things will change. This ain't the only life. No, I'm not.
Going back to the stems, we can combine similar sounds into the same stem to export so we can organize our mixing project and everything will be a lot easier to mix. Let's take these bass layers for example. I'm going to highlight these bass layers. The layering for these basses is already fine. I've cut out the low end on some of them to make room for the sub bass and other bass layers so they work well together. So I can export all three of these bass layers and the reverse bass at the bottom that I have here into one bass stem. One thing I would recommend doing when you're exporting stems for mixing is to turn the sidechain off. So I have sidechain compression on here with FabFilter Pro C2. I'm just going to disable that. And if I had reverb on the basses, I would disable that too, because reverb and delay are something I like to do during the mixing stage. So now I'm just going to highlight the region where this whole track is and bounce out this bass stem. So after I bounce out the bass stem, what I would do is just keep going through the project and do that with the rest of the project. I know this is a time-consuming thing to do, which is why I'm not going to show the whole process on video to go through all your tracks and bounce them as stems, but it's definitely worth it to get your mix organized. So once you take the time to bounce all those stems in your project, they'll end up in your bounces folder looking like this. So I managed to get that project full of 60 tracks down to about 28 tracks. And now I can just drag those stems into a new project. Now that everything's in here, we can start organizing everything to get ready to mix. So first of all, I like to do the BPM of the track first, just make sure the project's at the same BPM. So let me use this BPM counter on the kick track. So the BPM is 122, so I'm going to change my project to that. And you'll notice this track sounds super dry right now because I took off all that sidechain, reverb, and delay. I'm going to adjust this end marker and make this go out so it's fully filling the screen. And I'm also going to hit this button right now because right now it's kind of hard to see the audio files. And if you hit that, it just enlarges the audio file so you can see everything more clearly. Now I want the mix to really be peaking around like -6 dBs before it goes into mastering. So it looks like it's clipping right now. So I'm going to take every track and play the loudest section of the track and just bring down the volumes of every track together until it's peaking around 6 decibels. Alright, so that's good for that. Now I'm going to go through and color code everything and group similar things together. So I'll group the synths together, I'll group the vocals together, I'll group the bass together, I'll group the drums together, and the effects together. So let's just go through and see. So I'm going to bring up the color tool, ARP, that's going to be a synth, Atmos, so I'm going to count that as a synth too. We got some vocals down here. Bongos go under drums. Break bass is red for basses. So I have a color coding system for all these. So blue is going to be synths, red is going to be basses, purple is going to be vocals, and green is going to be drums. So I'm just going to go through and assign everything to those different groups. Now that everything's color coded, it's easy to group things together. So I'm going to group together the vocals first. I'll just drag all the purple tracks together, group those together. I'm going to hit Command-Shift-F to put them in a folder together. Just title them Vox. Now I'm going to take the basses and put them together. And I'm going to title that bass. Then I'm going to put all the synths together. And I like to put the instruments, synths, whatever, into one folder just called synths. Do synths. Now I just have the guitar and vocal chops by themselves because they're pretty important parts of the song and I want to be able to focus on those by themselves. So now I'm going to group the drums. So I'm just going to put the drums and effects in the same folder. Now within those specific folders, I like to arrange things even more. So I'll arrange them based on order of importance for the drums. So I'm going to do kick at the top here, and then I like to do the clap or snare after that. I'm going to do the drop snare, and I'm going to do like the hi-hats after that probably. So I'll have the open hats and the closed hat and the hat loop. Then I'm going to move the bongos back below here. I'll have the verse claps over there. I'll have the snare build here, and then these two effects down here, the impact and the uplifter, I'll leave at the bottom. So I just go through and arrange things within each folder just so I can organize everything how I need it so I can get to it as fast as possible. For the synth folder, I usually do things more chronologically, so I'll put those intro chords at the top there, and then next I have the ARP, and then I'll put the stabs and the atmosphere here, and that's good for that folder. Then for the vocals, I'll put the lead vocal at the top, and then the most important background vocals under that. Kind of looks like everything's already lined up that way. Then I actually balance the vocal reverb and delay separately so I can mix those individually on separate channels. So that's good for that folder. I'm going to put the synths at the top. Then I will do the guitar and then vocal chops, then bass and drums and effects, then vocals. So this is just the system I like to use to organize everything. You can do whatever works for you. But the point is, we went from that crazy looking project down to this very simplified mixing project. And it makes all the difference when starting a mix that everything is really organized. You know exactly where the sounds are when you need them. So I know we haven't even started the actual mix yet, but this is a very important part in mixing, is to organize everything in the mixing project so you can start doing the thing that really matters, is making a great mix. So I hope this was helpful to you. I'll catch you next week for part 2.